This Halloween, I plan to make a 1780s chemise a la Reine. I am going to be making it all black, mostly because it's going to be a Halloween dress, but there are some paintings of black dresses like this, so it's going to be mostly accurate. I'm going to be using all accurate materials for constructing it. Because the chemise is going to be made out of cotton lawn and very sheer, I'm going to need black undergarments to go along with it. So I will be making a black chemise, a black pair of stays, and a black petticoat to wear underneath. I am also planning on making black pockets just to kind of go along with the theme. I will make the dress and then it will have a sash for it that I'm going to be making out of black taffeta. And then I am making a black hat that I'm going to be covering in silk and silk ribbon. I would like to get black feathers for it. Currently I have gray ones, so I might see how that looks. But I am very excited to get going on this project. The first step is going to be making a new chemise to go along with this. I currently have one that I made about 3 or 4 years ago. It is out of a cream linen that has a pulled thread design in it. So this one itself is not particularly accurate. This black one won't really be accurate either, but I'm going to be making it a lot more fitted. This one is pretty loose. And then I also made the sleeves pretty long on it. I'm going to be making them more elbow length. And then I am going to be using black linen for the chemise. The first thing to do is to take my measurements to figure out how much linen I'm going to need. I've been watching the Burnley and Trowbridge series that they've been doing this spring on making your 18th century outfit, and I've been using their instructions on how to make the chemise, which really isn't that much different than how I constructed this one, but instead of, this one has a pretty square shape all the way up to the shoulders. The one that's on the Burnley and Trowbridge video, it tapers more, and then you take those slices that you cut out on the shoulders, and that's what you make your gores with for the sides. So the first step with that is taking your measurements. They want you to take a full bust. They want you to take the length. They want you to take from shoulder to shoulder. They want you to take from the shoulder measurement down to where you want it to sit at, and then also the bicep measurement there. So I will be preparing those pieces out of my linen. The linen that I found was from Joann's. It's a pretty cheap linen. I'll be using the method of pulling a thread to try to get nice square rectangles for this project. And then I will be machine sewing it just because I'm in sort of a time crunch here. I would prefer to hand sew it, but I just don't really have the time to dedicate for that. So I will be working on getting those pieces prepared. This is the linen that I will be making the chemise out of. It is also the same linen that I will be making the outer layer of my stays with. I was originally planning on using cotton for both of those projects, just since this was going to be a costume piece, but they ended up having a linen on sale for a better price than nice quality black cotton. So I went ahead and got this for both the shift and the stays. I did purchase some other black linen from Renaissance Fabrics, and that I was going to use for the petticoat, but it's kind of crazy. You can tell a difference between this linen here, which I got from Renaissance Fabrics for $15 a yard, I think, and then this linen here, which was from Joann's for, I think it ended up being like $6.50 a yard. I don't know if you can kind of see just even the texture between the two of them. The one that's more expensive is nice and smooth, and this one from Joann's is a little bit more textured, but we will go ahead and use it to make the shift. So I got the dimensions all figured out for the different pieces of my shift, and I went ahead and got all the pieces cut out. It took me about 2.5 hours to pull all the threads for these. This linen, since it's fairly cheap, you couldn't pull more than about a couple inches before the piece of linen would break. So that was kind of not so fun. But now that I have spent all this work on getting the pieces ready, I'm starting to feel like I should hand stitch this, but again, I think just with the time constraint, I probably better machine stitch. So that is the next.
The process for conducting the chemise is pretty straightforward. We have a front and back piece that make up the body of the chemise. There are also triangular gores that are attached to the bottom sides of each of these front and back pieces. That's what creates the triangular shape, or the skirt portion of the bottom of the chemise. The sleeves are a rectangle that has a triangular gore that's attached to create the ease for the armpit. The gore and sleeve portion are then going to be attached to the sides of the front and back. The front and back, of course, are attached at the shoulder, just like any other garment. In this clip here, I am hemming the sleeve portion, and then they will be attached to the main body of the chemise. One of the big differences between the Burnley and Trowbridge tutorial on how to make the chemise versus the research that I had done on my past one is that they showed the presence of reinforcement on both where the sleeve connected to the body of the shift and also along the shoulder seam. I went ahead and did add in the reinforcement around the armhole. I didn't add it on the side seam just because I don't think I'm going to be using this garment super often, but it was easiest to go ahead and hand sew in these reinforcement strips. I could have done it with the machine, but I enjoyed having the little chance to do some handwork on this project, and I'm pretty happy with the additional touch that it added with seeing the hand stitching seams around the sleeve.
So over the course of making this video, I have lost some of the construction footage for putting this together. So I thought it might be kind of interesting to just break down the pieces that are in the shift because it's a pretty universal garment that's been used for hundreds of years. So I'm going to start with my old shift that I have. And as I mentioned earlier, it's pretty much just kind of a wide rectangle. So it's the front and the back rectangular pieces sewn together at the shoulders. And then there is a gore that is put in on the side. And so that is 2 triangular pieces because there is a seam down the middle of the gore. And so that gives the bottom this kind of triangular shape to it. And then the sleeves are again just rectangles. There is another gore that is in the armpit area here. That's basically a square that is folded in half diagonally, and that gives you this triangular piece that fits in. And then once you have all of that, you basically cut out your neckline and it's done. As I mentioned earlier, that's pretty much exactly how this one is made as well, except for by following the tutorial from Burnley and Trowbridge, they had, instead of it being rectangular at the top, it's more shaped like this. And then another thing that was different with that method versus the one I did before was reinforcement pieces sewn in along the shoulder here to reinforce. They also recommended through here as well, but I didn't do that just because I'm probably not going to be wearing this a ton. But something else that's kind of interesting, I think, is that men's shirts from that time were made a very similar way. And this is a shirt that I made for my husband. And so again, it's a big rectangle that has rectangular sleeves. Kind of the difference with this one is that they are gathered in the top, but it does still have the gore in the armpit here. And then instead of just the curved neckline, we have a collar that was attached, and then this also had a little gore that was put in the neckline to give a little bit more movement. But I find it interesting that men's shirts and women's chemises are pretty much the same exact garment, which makes sense because men were wearing this as a undergarment as well. But I think it's just kind of a cool little feature. So I completed my black shift and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. The last step is to cut the neck hole on it. I went ahead and put on my current shift, and I see the way that I cut the neck hole is probably too big. It wants to slip off the shoulders and it goes pretty low. So I think I'm not going to cut as deep of a neckline, and I think I did this more oval shaped, and the Burnley and Trowbridge video she was talking about doing more of a square shape, so I think I might try that. So I will use this neckline as kind of a guide to cut this one smaller, and so we will go from there. So here is my black shift, just waiting to cut the neck hole, and I've kind of penciled in, probably can't see super well, but with the chalk pencil, what I think I'm going to go ahead and cut for the neckline. So the next step is to cut that out and go ahead and hem it, and then it's going to be done. The funny thing is I actually really kind of like this as is for a modern dress. So I think I might have to use these same exact methods and make a dress out of linen. There's a lot of really cool bright colors on Merchant and Mill's website, so I might have to get some fun linen and make a dress. Okay, so I have the neck hole cut, and I went ahead and put a hem on it, and so this is done. I ended up being a little wider in the shoulders than I probably would have preferred. It's funny how when I had it on, that seemed almost too narrow, and now it's too wide, but I guess I lost half an inch doing the hem on it. I like the depth on it. I think my curves are maybe a little wonky, but that's okay. So I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. A couple of the things that I did not follow along with is I didn't put the reinforcement strips on the top, and it did end up being too small when I finished it. I think that's because my fabric was a little narrower than the suggested fabric, so I lost some width through the bust on that. So I ended up just putting in the strip down the back, which is maybe not the best way to do that. Probably would have been better to split it all the way down and put in side strips in the side, but I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. I didn't really want to mess with the gusset and all the work on the sides, so I'm happy with that. And the next step is going to be doing the stays, and then it'll be onto the dress. So I'm excited.